January 9th marked the second and final round of voting in Bhutan's National Assembly election. The People's Democratic Party came out on top, securing 30 out of the 47 seats, with the new Bhutan Tendral Party winning the other 17. What were the main issues in the voting, and what can we expect from Bhutan's next government? I'm Shannon Tiezi, Editor-in-Chief at The Diplomat, and this is Behind the News. I'm joined today by Tenzin Lansang, the editor of the Bhutanese newspaper, to talk about Bhutan's election and what's next for the country. Tenzin, thank you for joining us. The election campaign...
thank you for having me.
The election campaign was dominated by discussions of economic crisis and Bhutan's brain drain, the loss of its youngest citizens to immigration. Is it safe to say that those are the biggest concerns for Bhutanese citizens right now?
Yes, correct. The number one issue is the economy. I think after the pandemic, the Bhutanese economy hasn't really recovered, and in fact, it went worse. We have record low levels of foreign currency reserves. We have as a result, we have import ban where you can't import vehicles, luxury vehicles or vehicles, except for like some farm implements and all that. And then I think that is also linked to the migration in some ways, because in the longer term, I think Bhutan has an issue of economic stagnancy, where youth don't really see an economic future for themselves here, and which is why they've been migrating in numbers to, for example, Australia, Canada, UK, the Middle East even. So I think these were top of the mind issues in these elections.
So how did the PDP convince voters that it was the right party to help turn Bhutan's economy around?
Okay. So how PDP could convince the voters is based on its track record, because it formed the government between 2013 and 18 for 5 years. And when it entered in 2013, Bhutan was suffering from what we call a rupee crisis. Loans were kind of not being given, and it was essentially a foreign currency reserve crisis. And when they came in, they managed to kind of fix the economy. And when they left, the economy was doing well. So based on that track record, they said that, you've in the past, when you gave us a chance, we performed. Now that the economy is down, we can come in and perform. And also in terms of its manifesto, which was the most ambitious of all the 5 political parties that took part in this race. And its manifesto was heavily had a lot of heavy economic content in terms of FDI investment, in terms of job creation, in terms of facilitating private sector growth, and all of that. So because of that, I think, and its track record, the people voted for PDP and gave it the majority, and now it will be forming the government.
So as you mentioned, the PDP was in government once before, 2013 to 2018. So based on its history then and its platform this time around, what do you think its top priorities are going to be on day one? What is the PDP going to try to accomplish?
Yeah. So right now is the election petition period of 10 days that will continue from the declaration of results. So once it comes into government in the, let's say, next 1 week plus, on the first day in its manifesto, it has already announced it will take a series of economic decisions to kickstart the economy, to give the economy a boost. And the biggest of them will be, it will work towards creating a 15 billion Nultram kind of economic stimulus fund, which will be pumped into the economy right away in the form of credit, in the form of stimulus incentives, and then it's announced it will take a host of policy measures in the first day in office with regard to tourism and an economic advisory board and how it can raise FDI. So a host of measures from day one itself, and I think its prime focus will be on economy in its starting from its first day of office, and So I mean, it's got no time to lose, because now whatever economic mess there is, it's inherited it, and it'll have to kind of dig Bhutan out of it.
How about on the foreign policy front? There's a lot of discussion about Bhutan's relationship with India, but also China as well. Even though Bhutan does not have formal relations with China, the territorial disputes are, particularly overseas, of a lot of interest to our viewers. How might the new government tackle diplomacy and foreign policy issues?
Well, I think Bhutan has only one foreign policy, so don't expect any major changes in the foreign policy. There might be some difference in style and substance and tone, but no major changes or surprises will be there. I think one thing can be said, that the current prime minister, uh, as soon as he came into office, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated him and called him his friend. So he has a good working relationship with the current Indian Prime Minister. They know each other. I mean, in his past capacity as the Prime Minister from 2013 to 18 was during the first tenure of Prime Minister Modi's government in India, and they had a good working relationship. So, and then in terms of the other steps, I think the PDP president, who will now be the Prime Minister elect, Dashot Sering Tobge, he has traveled in his time as Prime Minister, and after that also traveled the world extensively. He knows a lot of world leaders. As well as leaders of multilateral agencies like the UN and the World Bank and all that. So he has a good international network. So one of the reasons that the PDP was elected was because people wanted an experienced government, an experienced prime minister at the helm when the ship is a bit rocky.
So, speaking a little bit more broadly, this was Bhutan's fourth general election since it became a constitutional monarchy. How would you evaluate the country's general democratic health?
Well, I think the Bhutanese democracy has been evolving quite rapidly. As if I can state an example, in the first elections in 2008, it was quite polarizing. People took it a bit too seriously, and then there were cases where even like sisters were not talking to each other because they were supporting different parties. But over time, people have matured. They've realized that it's not a zero-sum game, that it's a process where it's a continuous process, and then where there is check and balance by various institutions. So democracy has really matured in Bhutan. And I can say that because I've noticed that each election is less polarizing. People have become more matured. They become smarter in selecting leaders, and they become quite discerning in terms of looking at the manifesto pledges and see who can deliver and not deliver. And one feature of Bhutanese democracy, which I find quite interesting, is that even though it's a young democracy, it keeps changing the government every 5 years. So it doesn't let anyone stay in power for too long, to get too entrenched or get too complacent. So whoever comes in is always on their toes. So I think in that way, democracy electorally has progressed. And otherwise also, I think people are, I mean, now more open. They can talk about the issues. I think I'm in the press, so while there are issues of sometimes access to information and all that, which is, I think, a universal problem, but I think the press also, we've been pushing our boundaries, and so I mean, yeah. So I think we are evolving, and evolving for the better, I would say.
Yes, certainly Bhutan seems to stand out as a bright spot given some of the democratic backsliding we've seen around the rest of the world. So congratulations to Bhutan for that. Tenzing, thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you to our viewers at home for tuning in. Please subscribe to the Diplomat's channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. And I hope to see you next time on Behind the News.